Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So here we are, finally, stage one. As I discussed, you should have just come from the reality check video. As I suggested, start at stage one and then you can go to the footprint at the end. If you did the footprint, fine, it's not the end of the world. But ideally, you would have just come from the introduction section where I did the introduction, obviously, to the pro course, and then I gave the reality check video. So this is really stage one, auction market theory. Why are we starting here? Well, what I'm going to do is at the start of every stage, I think it makes sense, not only every stage, but every section within every stage. I'm going to keep coming back to this because, as I said, you should have printed this out by now and have this in front of you. So you can really see how you hear a lot about top-down approaches, so on and so forth. Well, um, in an institutional environment, really, this is what it means to be top down, or at least according to my observation, and what I saw and learned from the most successful traders around me. So, like I said, when you're in a professional firm, I don't want to repeat the point, but it's a fact. I said it in the introduction section that you're going to be learning a lot of this stuff straight off the bat. And what I found was really lacking in the pure classroom environment anyway was that it would be taught as if, this is the tools, um, or the approaches or the logic, you could say. Because I want to avoid using the word tool because it sounds a little bit like it's an indicator, and it isn't. As you know, it's just inherent within every traded good and service. And we're going to come on to that in terms of what these things are telling us. But obviously, you've had a flavor of that because you've been doing the depth of market. And you can see the depth of market is not an indicator, it's just raw data. It's real people buying and selling. It's about as raw as you can get, undistorted, unfiltered, just pure what is going on. Um, so anyway, my point is that in a professional environment, I'm going to teach you exactly what they're teaching you, and I said that already in the introduction. But obviously, I'm going to try and teach you in the format or order that I think is going to be most beneficial to you, and what I saw the most successful people doing, and that was really starting out their day by building a hypothesis of what they think is going to happen. So we'll come back to building hypotheses and we'll talk about that a lot more in future. But as you can see, and I won't say this every time I bring this up, I'm just telling you this one time, that every time we go through a section, I'm just going to bring this up as a reminder that, okay, we've done this section, we're going to move on to a different section, we're going to move on to a different section, and so on and so forth. So obviously here we're starting with auction market theory, and so that's really first on your list, and it kind of gives you an eyesight into what's to come and how much you've really got to learn before you get to the stage where you can, in theory, start testing your hypothesis, i.e. taking trades. So you can see you've got quite a fair way to cover. So we're going to start with auction market theory, and that's why we're doing auction market theory first, because it generally encompasses the theory and practice, what we see in real life behind everything. As you know, I've talked a lot about different traded goods and services which are not currencies or financial markets or stocks or commodities or whatever it is, financial assets essentially. So we're going to do a lot more of that now because it's really at the foundation of everything that I do. So let's go straight on and start auction market theory. Before I do that, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping, and I hope you don't mind. And I'm saying this at the start because I know a lot of people, obviously not a lot, but a fair few probably might not want to watch the whole video because it can go on for a while. Although I'm going to give you a reality check about that. I've got one minor request, this housekeeping. I didn't say it in the foundation course. I just feel like it's a good opportunity now that you've seen the course and you can see just how much effort I've put into it, and um, I don't really need any praise for that. I understand people are obviously paying hard-earned money for what they're receiving. So there's a fair exchange going on, and I accept that, and I'm very grateful for that. However, I just want to make a small request, if I may, just that look, please, what I'm about to show you is so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be very clear to you that this is what you'll learn in a proprietary trading firm, and this is what I'm showing you, which is a slight either differentiation on it in terms of my own view of it, um, or not. So I'm going to be very clear about that. But my point is that, and I don't want to, exaggerate the point too much, or again, make this about my ego or something, and it's not. All I'm doing is some housekeeping. Look, at the end of the day, um, I'm giving you my life's work, and I don't mind doing that, because there is no secret source or some sort of secret technical indicator nonsense that you'll suddenly be able to use my work and go and become a millionaire overnight. No, it's gonna require a lot of hard work, and as I've said before in the reality check video, there is going to be some discretion required. We're never going to take the same entries. You're not going to take away my edge. I'm more than happy to give you everything that I know. However, the reality is the majority of the stuff I'm going to show you is not out there in the public domain. So, I would just make a polite request that please be discreet with some of the information I'm going to show you. I'll be completely open and honest and say, look, this stuff is obviously available out in the open. So things like VWAP and profile in its core element, there'll be stuff out there, and you can YouTube it. There is stuff out there, but some of the explanations, examples, way I do things, I know it's not out there because I've developed it myself, and it's not an indicator I've developed. It's a way of application. Obviously, the way sometimes I describe things are obviously unique to me. So it's just etiquette, really. I would just request that. Look, please, everything I'm obviously going to show you in the pro course is literally something I've developed over my entire trading career, and um, you know, at the end of the day, if it made its way into the public domain, I'm really not fussed at the face of it, because like I said, for someone to actually make this work, you've seen how much work is involved. They're going to have to do everything, and then obviously at the end of it they still may not succeed. However, again, it's just out of courtesy, I'm just asking that, and I'm sure everyone will adhere to that. But I've put a lot of effort into it, and yeah, that's all that needs to be said. Is I'll just make that polite request that just be discreet with the information I'm showing you. I would appreciate if you didn't go and obviously talk about it on public forums and things like that. Um, Thank you, really appreciate it. So that's out of the way. And we can really start to move on with some of the theory. But what's going to happen is, right, and the reason I've put this reality check in here is it's the clues in the word theory, auction market theory. So auction market theory, a lot of what I see out there um, can be very dogmatic in the way people describe it, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that later. However, the fact remains that for me to build you up, and I'm going to do it in a much more practical manner, as you've seen. What you'll have to understand, and there'll be a reality check about this later, is that there isn't a lot of black and white in trading. And I'm going to do a reality check on this later. If you can't accept that, it's going to be very difficult for you to succeed. And I'm not saying that basically the entire market is wishy-washy. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that you've got to give a bit of wiggle room to things. And when I say the way I've seen auction market theory being described in the past as dogmatic, it can almost get on the verge of like technical analysis, where you're trying to look for perfect things, perfection, and in imperfection. The market's imperfect. It's obviously made up of millions of participants that are unpredictable, and you've got to understand that and I've mentioned this before, that if you've got children, friends, relatives, doesn't matter if it's children, anyone, any age, they're very hard to predict. People, behaviors. You know this if you go into business, it's very difficult to predict what someone who's a potential customer, a supplier, whatever it could be, it's very hard to have 100% certainty over how they're going to behave going forward. And markets are no different. Markets are just people transacting. That's why it's called a auction market. So I am relating what I'm saying to you back to this. But that's the whole point. The market is an auction of people. Yes, algorithms, I have said, are a huge chunk of the market now, significant amount, but they're programmed by people. So at the same time, somehow this unpredictability of people comes through, and we don't know how they've programmed algorithms. We don't know the program, we can't see that. So even the behavior of an algorithm can be unpredictable based on how it's been programmed. So anyway, look, the point is that you've got to understand that there's going to be um, some wiggle room around how it actually works in practice. But coming back to this point about heavy theory, is that for me to really show you how it works in real life, this whole essence of there being quite a wiggle room that you've got to give it, I've obviously got to build you up and I've got to take you through theoretically how it works. But I try to do that with real life examples. I guess it's the whole point of why I've just said what I've said. Um, but the reality check is that at times theory is going to get very heavy. There's going to be a bit of statistics I have to show you. You don't have to be a maths whiz. But I've got to be honest with you. When you work in a professional environment, they're going to assume that you have a very basic statistical knowledge. But don't worry about it. I'm going to build you up. I said the whole point of me putting this together is to bridge the gap between retail and professional. So I'm going to bridge that small gap that there is when it comes to statistics, to do with probability distributions, etc. And really don't get worried, please, because I genuinely meant what I said before in the last reality check, which is that the guys that actually made it very rarely had mathematical backgrounds and things, in at least in discretionary trading. In much more technical types of trading, like for example options and structured products, then yeah, it helps to have that. But in pure outright risk taking of vanilla products, I mean plain products, it really isn't. It doesn't come down to mathematical background. So don't worry about it. It's a very little amount that you need to know, but you do need to know it. But I'm going to get you there, so don't worry about that, and it's part of this section. But my point is that it's going to get very heavy, the theory, over the next few hours. And if you can't stick with it, this is my reality check. You're not going to make it. And I'll tell you why. Because think about it. What have you tasked me with? You've given me a job, right? My job is to do what? Show you. How do they do this in professional circles? So if I didn't do this and give you this reality check, I'm doing you a disservice. Why is that? Well, if you'd started tomorrow morning, say tomorrow morning you were starting at a professional firm, guys, you've got to understand, you're going to be in a classroom for about 3 months at least, probably longer, until you're even allowed on the trading floor. Forget it, forget it. I've obviously been through two major training programs, one in investment banking, one in proprietary trading. Both of them, you know, I wasn't allowed. Investment banking, they put me in a different building for 3 or 4 months where they trained me up in classrooms. Proprietary trading, yeah, it was next door to the trading floor, so I could see the screens, etc., etc. But at the same time, I was in a classroom environment, so you've got to understand. If you started in a professional trading firm tomorrow, you'd be spending 8 to 10, maybe more hours a day sitting, listening to a teacher talking to you about the markets, whatever it is, um, developing your understanding of markets. So if you can't put up with an hour lecture, hour and a half, I know in the foundation course we had some longer lectures, or if you can't put up with me discussing things with you and you're skipping through sections, no, you're not doing it in the way that it's done in a professional environment. And I'm doing you a favor by saying this. You need to really maybe go away and think about um, whether this is the right time for you to be learning this. Because what's going to happen is, what I want to avoid is people getting onto when I start to teach you how to do a hypothesis in the market, and you get lost because you didn't listen to the whole theoretical elements. You didn't understand when I'm teaching you about normal distributions and standard deviations, and you're not doing all the examples with me, you're just not going to understand it. I'm sorry to say. And it's unfair on you, it's unfair on me, because you'll be contacting me saying, I don't get it. Well, did you go through the whole thing properly? I understand there'll be some of you who will have gone through the whole thing properly and you still won't understand it. Fine, we can deal with that on a um, you know person by person basis. That's not a problem. But I hope you don't mind. I'm doing you a favor. Give you this reality check that you know go through the pain, because picture yourself, essentially, is what I'm saying, in this proprietary trading classroom with a professional trader taking his time out of his day speaking to you. Not, and I'm not doing it for 8 hours, I'm doing it for a lot less. And that's because obviously, we're not in a classroom environment, we're not taking breaks, we're not chatting to each other, and obviously I can do it in a bit of a shorter time frame. And also, I'm obviously using my experience to really give you what you exactly need, but it's still going to take me time. So listen to it, go through it. It's for your own benefit. Yeah, I hope you don't think I'm patronizing you. I'm not. I'm really trying to help you. To say, look, just do it. Just go through it. Watch the whole thing, and it's going to benefit you massively. So enough on that. Apologize. I didn't mean to give you a lecture. I'm trying to help you. And then finally, I just wanted to say on market structure. So the second reality check is that at the end of what are you trying to achieve out of auction market theory? Well, I've kind of said it. I believe I discussed it slightly in the foundation course. I put that example together a while ago. The can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was milk, wasn't it? It was milk. The example was a while back. Maybe about a month ago, I built that example. So I believe it was milk, but whatever it was, and I put bread in that 4-part mini series I did. So at the end of this, what you want to have concluded essentially is market structure, yeah, an understanding of market structure. And I went through it in quite a bit of detail, obviously, in the when I discussed volume profile in module 4, I think it was, as I already said with the milk stuff. But so you want to understand market structure, but what market structure? Every market in the world. And I'm not talking, I keep hearing people say to me, oh, do you use market structure? And what do you mean market structure? They're talking about financial markets to me. I know I get a lot of people asking me on social media and this and that, oh, do you use market structure to trade? And they're talking about financial market structure. What they don't understand is the market is the market is the market. It's not the financial market. The market, that term market structure, market, applies to every market. When you say market structure, you have to come out of this section thinking every traded good and service that has a price in the world has the same theoretical structure. I say theoretical because obviously in practice, depending on how liquid it is, um, the structure is going to be slightly different. Um, so, obviously financial markets are very liquid. Um, certain products that are bought and sold in supermarkets tend to have medium liquidity because obviously supply can run out. And things like housing is very illiquid because obviously there is typically a shortage of supply of property in one particular road or area that you're interested in. So liquidity can vary and structure can obviously be quite different, and we're going to discuss that. But the point is, market structure at the end of this, you have to recognize there's no difference between financial market, bread market, chocolate market, wine market, coffee cup market, um, keyboard market. Any single product or service you can think of has the same market structure. And therefore, would you agree? We've said it before. If when supermarkets, Microsoft, Amazon, McDonald's, whoever it is, one of these big companies or small companies or medium-sized companies or whatever, obviously the bigger ones are more well known, when they're trying to forecast price, you already know they're not using technical indicators. They're using what? Data that they have, raw data, depth of market, time and sales. That is the same data that gets put through the cash register on a daily basis in a business. Not necessarily cash register, obviously with property transactions it's put through the bank, or I say property, but it could be anything. Financial transactions are put through the bank, but whatever, you get the point. If you're not using technical indicators to predict where house prices are going to be, where bread prices are going to be, where McDonald's think the price of French fries are going to be, clearly they're not using technical indicators. They're using raw data of demand and supply, which they collect. You know, their corporate arms, finance arms, they have data intelligence. It's or business intelligence functions that can collect this data through, you know, very vast systems and networks. They're collecting this data. They're not using indicators. If by the end of this you recognize that financial markets are no different to other markets, well, then you've got to reach the conclusion that indicators are not used by market participants industry wide, right? You've got to realize this, that if the financial market structure is the non-financial market structure, i.e. the things we, and I keep repeating the point, but obviously it's really important. So forgive me if it sounds like I'm a broken record, but in about a month, people are going to forget. That's the thing. They just don't realize how important this is. I wish, and I said to you, you know, obviously there's bits that I would make clear that proprietary trading firms are going to teach you. In my opinion, they really don't hammer this point home enough. This is where I've decided myself to make this such a big part of what I teach you, because it's in my mind every day. I just want you to know, every time I open my chart and do a hypothesis, I don't think of it as a financial asset. I think of it as a good, a service, any asset that has demand and supply, and that's how I'm approaching it, using market structure, not financial market structure. Any good or traded, good traded good or service market structure. So again, coming back to this, if you're in agreement with me that McDonald's aren't using a MACD or divergence or trend, I mean, obviously they're not. We all know this, to predict where French fries are going to be. If you agree with me that Tesco aren't using technical analysis to predict where the price of milk is going to be, um, and you agree with me that market structure is obviously the same across all markets, that means you agree that technical analysis is basically a load of nonsense. And if by the end of this section you haven't reached that conclusion, then this is my reality check to you, that you should probably um, go through another phase of using technical tools and not obviously being consistent. Um, Coming back, doing this section a few times until you actually realize what is actually going on in the marketplace. So we'll talk about this throughout, and it will become apparent. So that's enough for me to say. I just want to say it because I'm going to keep coming back to this point. And then finally on market structure, and I said this before when I was talking about the heavy theory stuff, is that when what you're going to see is that, and I need you to reach this conclusion by the end of it, when we're obviously, talking about, here being fair value, um, you have to understand that problem with technical analysis is, and methodologies that people have been telling you about in markets, in particular forex, which is, it's a shame that the industry has obviously ended up this way, um, is that all these technical, whatever it is, methodologies, they're always looking for very precise entries. And you have to accept, this is my reality check to you, that even though we're going to describe fair value and we're going to come to some very good ways of identifying it, it's not going to be exact. There's going to be, um, you know, a bit of a range around what fair value is, because obviously the markets are imperfect. It's things to do with liquidity and efficiency, and we're going to talk about all these things. But the point is, at the end of this, yeah, you really have to come to that acceptance, and that's again the problem with using these very specific methodologies like um, moving averages, trend lines, Fibonacci's. They're all crap basically, because what they do is they make you focus so much on a very specific point. And what I'm going to show you and what you should reach the conclusion is, yeah, it doesn't work like that in real life. No traded good or service has a perfect value to it. It has, a range of values which is approximately what the fair price is. So let's go on and actually look at these 2 points, and then they'll make more sense. So let's go on to the next slide. Just keep these two things in mind because I'm going to keep referring back to them. But let's start with some real life examples, and then hopefully auction market theory, I can bring it to life for you using what you would learn in a proprietary trading firm. But I'm gonna push it that much further and show you some of the things that I think they don't teach you that you should be aware of. So let's start golf and do the next slide. Just get rid of this stuff. Okay, so I want to start with bread. I know I spoke a lot in the previous slide, but it was absolutely necessary, and you're going to see why. But we've already been through milk, and if you need to go back to module 4, maybe remind yourself, because I did go into quite a bit of profile and how profile exists in every single market. But now you've spent time on the depth of market. I think you're ready for me to take it up a notch. And I'm really gonna take auction market theory to the next level and show you from a much broader perspective, build it up, and then we're going to take it down again. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Because as I said, I'm more interested in market orders in financial markets, but there's a specific reason for that. And I didn't really want to get too much into that in module 4 because it would have got confusing. But let me show you why that is. So if we looked at price on one axis this way, and then we looked at quantity, which is what we were doing in the milk example, let's remind ourselves exactly, and what it is. I'm going to look at it from a slightly different angle, but don't worry, it's exactly the same thing. Don't get confused, because what it is, I want to take it to a systematic level now. Before, I was showing you very much at a much more tangible level, in the sense that I believe what I was saying was that you were doing a survey, physically standing outside collecting data. But what I want you to realize is that big corporations have systems in place to collect this data systematically, automatically, through a vast array of systems. So, supermarkets are a great example. Amazon is a brilliant example. They'll have, many systems connected to each other in different areas of the world. If it's a supermarket, it'll be in different areas of the country where they have systems at the till. Every time someone buys bread, before I said to you that actually you're standing outside on a high street and there's a variety of shops selling milk. But actually, the truth is that if you strictly speaking want to give a like for like example, if you think about it, financial markets, say on a depth of market, is an exchange traded market. Really, you're buying and selling from one exchange. So the best way to really hit this home in terms of how this really works in real life is just think of one corporation. So one um, supermarket, for example, that is dealing in bread, or could be one retailer like Amazon or whoever it is. But in this example, I'm going to use a UK based company called Tesco, but it could be Walmart in the US, it could be your local big supermarket chain. So, what they'll be doing is um, they are essentially a supplier. So, what you've got to recognize is that bread has a depth of market. And you know what? This shouldn't be any surprise to you because bananas had a depth of market. You saw it. There was a supplier of bananas in that marketplace. What is happening is, in the similar way, the reason why it's quite nice to use a single corporation is because when you think of one supermarket like Tesco, Walmart, and so on and so forth, they're selling so much of this product that essentially what you've got to recognize is they're collecting volume profile information. You just don't realize it. That's why I got you to think of it in a more tangible sense, where I said, look, go and stand on a high street and physically, if you were asking everyone, how much did you pay? How much did you pay? And you're making a tally of milk, it was easier for me to explain it to you that way because you can actually visualize yourself doing that. But unless you've worked in a um, business intelligence function or a data intelligence function or a finance function within a corporation, you're not going to know that actually, and you may know, but I suspect, majority of people watching this are not going to realize that these companies have systems religiously collecting the data of every single sale they make. Firstly, they have to do it for accounting purposes, obviously taxation and financial reporting purposes. They're obliged, especially if you're a big company and you're publicly listed. You're going to have obligations to your shareholders to collect this information and provide them with financial information anyway. But much more importantly, on a day-to-day basis and in terms of price determination, that's why these companies are collecting this data systematically and religiously, as I said. So, what Tesco will be doing is every time someone buys bread, it goes bleep through the till, that gets recorded on a. You won't realize this. That information gets sent somewhere to their corporate headquarters, and there'll be some guy who's like a data analyst, and he'll be collecting this information, and they'll be storing this information, and they will be creating a profile. They don't call it volume profile, but that is exactly what it is. So let me give you an example. We said that obviously this axis is price. Now bread, I'm going to do it in pounds. We did it in dollars before, but let's not discriminate by currency. Who cares what currency it is? But let's just say a loaf of bread typically costs £1, right? You walk into your store and look, doesn't matter what it is, let's just imagine that it is £1. We know it roughly is £1. And I said to you before, every time you do a survey and someone buys milk, you record it. Think of it electronically now, because I want to show you um, just how close to what is happening in the financial markets, not even close, identical, is going on in every traded good and service corporate in the world. They're collecting data in the same way a volume profile is collecting data, in the same way a depth of market is collecting or depicting raw data. So all that's happening, right, is you've got to understand that if this is £1, so it actually says crude oil, but forget that. I've blanked it out, as you can see, because I want to show you that there's supply and market orders, demand, right, and supply. Now look, it's going to confuse you if we think of bread as a two-way market. So forget about that at the moment. Let's just imagine that it's just demand and supply on the offer side. Why do I say that? Because what is Tesco? We're talking about Tesco here, right? If you don't know who that is, Walmart, same type of thing. Just imagine it's Walmart or your local supermarket again. Would you agree? Who's offering bread? Tesco. They've got inventory at what? £1, right? Let's say they're offering, and this is countrywide. I'm just going to make up a number. I have no idea how many they're offering, but let's just say it's 10,000. Right, sorry, ignore these numbers. It's just the legacy numbers that were there. I took this at the weekend. Can you see they're offering bread at 10,000? Right? What you've got to realize is they're the dominant force. They're almost dictating what the price is. They're obviously being supplied with bread and they're dictating what the price is, and it's £1. However, how do you think that they're setting those prices? Well, they're collecting data. Because what's happening is every time someone buys bread and it goes through the till, bleep, it gets recorded. Now, before I told you you're manually recording it, but look, the reality is it's not being manually recorded. It's being recorded in a system, and that data is going somewhere. And what's that? One, market order. Someone else comes into Tesco and does what? Buys bread. This is the best picture of bread I could find. But actually, there's a reason why I show you this, but we'll come back to that. Bleep goes through the checkout, recorded. What happened? 2 market orders. Guys, obviously it's not going to happen this slow. It's going to happen fast and furious throughout the day at every single store in the whole country. Obviously, market orders, this is going to be, probably thousands, let's be honest. But what you've got to recognize is throughout the country and as time passes, there's going to be differences in prices. And you can prove it to yourself, honestly. Go to Tesco on the first day of every month for a year and write down the price of the loaf of bread. It won't be the same. Prove it to yourself. It's not going to be a million miles apart, but typically it's going to vary by a few pence here and there. And I said this before about milk, that it's going to have a slightly wide range in terms of what the fair price is. So, it could be 95p some days, it could be £1.5, and there's going to be various factors for that. But the point is, the majority of transactions are going to take place in these regions. What are these transactions? Market orders. So, this could be 2,000. You're going to see transactions taking place, 2,000 here, 2,000 here. Obviously, there'll be supply at each level, 10k, 10k, 10k. But what it is rather than is slightly different to a financial market because of the dominant force. So this is why I didn't want to introduce this earlier, because you're going to get confused if had I introduced this earlier. But now that you're familiar with depth of market and so on and so forth, what you've got to realize is that in the real world, in the majority of cases, suppliers are dictating market prices, at least initially. However, they're also collecting data in terms of demand taking place at those prices. So the reason why I say suppliers are dictating prices, I'm going to come back to that. Don't get confused. I'm going to tell you why I'm saying that. For now, just stick with me. So these market orders are taking place at each price. So sorry, this was £1, 5p. This is 95p, and so on and so forth. And this is 95p. Okay, this is £1, 5p. So you can see we talked about this already. You can kind of draw a line of best fit, and we'll come on to this. It's called normal distributions, but essentially fair price is going to be what of bread around 95p to sort of £1, 5p, right? And there's going to be very few transactions taking place at extremes when certain things happen, and we'll come on to that as to why price can change. But essentially what I want to show you is that, look, it's a volume profile. The same way you see it here, it's just a volume profile. What we're going to do now is I'm going to introduce time to you. Okay, so we're going to get rid of this if I can, and I'm actually going to introduce the passage of time, and I'm going to show you that what is actually happening is that corporations are collecting information in exactly the same way. So before I spoke about obviously profiles being flipped, and we're obviously looking at it one way, and obviously distributions when you're collecting data typically tend to be like this. But the only reason, and I haven't really spoken about this much before, that volume profile is done in, top to bottom, is because of the passage of time. So let me show you what I mean by that. So same example now, right? So again, we're going to look at price, okay? But this time we're going to look at it on the y-axis, i.e. The axis pointing up. And then here, now, we're going to introduce time. Okay, so what's happened here is that rather than having quantity on the axis, we've got rid of quantity and we're looking purely at time. And what we've done is we've moved what? Quantity over to the side. What do I mean by that? So let's say time is 0. What do I mean by that? 1st of January, right? And the price we said was what? £1. Okay. So this is what you've got to realize. In most traded goods and services, the supplier will initially be setting the price. So Tesco will come to the market. They own the marketplace, and they will say, all right, we're going to sell bread. We're going to offer bread at £1. We got 10,000 units inventory, right? So what's going to happen is transactions are going to take place, and as time goes by, let's put month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, month 5, month 6, and so on. As time goes by, what's going to happen? The price is going to be at 1. However, quantity, as you know with the volume profile, what's going to happen? Transactions are taking place. They're building up over here. Then what happens? Tesco decide, actually, let's see if there's appetite at £1.05. So guys, I know, a lot of this, some of you might be getting a little bit lost up until this point, but this is where you're really going to think, oh, that aha moment should be hitting, because what Tesco will then do is they'll move the price to £1.05, and what they're doing is they're collecting market order transactions, and their guys in corporate headquarters are watching this demand market orders at £1.05. Got it? And based on what happens here, right, they might go up and think, oh, there's decent market orders at £1.05. Let's try £1.10. Okay, what happens is every morning, and I know this, right? I've had corporate customers before, so I learned a little bit about this when I first started investment banking, and I was working on the foreign exchange desk. As I said, obviously I spoke to large companies, treasurers, and I remember having a chat with someone, and he explained this to me. He said, every day price labels are sent into all the stores throughout the country based on analysis done overnight on data collection. So they'll be looking at demand, market orders at each price that they are supplying at. Okay, so in the morning, what will happen is Tesco headquarters, Walmart headquarters, whatever, their business analyst will have looked at all this data coming through to the head office and have said, there's market orders at £1.05. Let's put the price up. So they'll send out these new labels and they'll put the price up. And what will happen is at the end of the day, what will happen? Naturally, price has gone up. Maybe in this instance, market orders will have gone down. So they will think to themselves, oh, maybe it's too high. Let's move the price back down again. So can you see what's happening? The price is going down. And the point to this is, look, what is this? It's a volume profile. And what they'll be saying to themselves is, and I said this before in the milk example, is they'll be thinking to themselves, all right, where's the fair value of bread? Where is the fair value of bread? Well, where is it? It's £1, right? Why is that? Because that is where market transactions took place. We were willing to supply and demand was met there. And it was a fairly, how do I say, even marketplace where plenty of transactions took place. Because why do I say that? That supply was willing to meet it? Because what's the other side of buying? Supply. So if a lot of market orders took place at £1, clearly Tesco were willing to supply there as well. So it was kind of a good equilibrium price, is my point. Fair price. That's what it was. Now, let's do it the other way, right? Believe me, this is what they're doing all day long. Every single business in the world is testing the market for different prices. And right now, this might not make sense why this relates to financial markets, but it does, believe me, and just stick with me. So for a little while, they'll stick at £1 and, more transactions will take place. Sorry, I've just had to borrow some of this space. But every time transactions are taking place, would you agree, quantity is building here in this profile? How is that different to this? It isn't, it's exactly the same. Okay, so then they think to themselves, let's test 95p. Whatever reason, maybe the next batch of supply that Tesco bought, they got it a bit cheaper, and they think, because don't forget, how do you make money? It's not price, it's price times quantity, right? So they might think, maybe if we sell it cheaper, we might be able to sell so many that 5p difference that we just dropped the price of from £1 to 95p, we can make it up in revenue terms, i.e. we'll actually make more money. So let me give you an example. If you sell 1,000 units at £1, but you sell 2,000 units at 95p, you made more money, all right? So it's not only about price, is my point. So what they'll do is they'll say, oh, let's try 95p now. Okay, now again, maybe these transactions really started to go up, and they thought, okay, that's working. Let's try 90p. Okay, so now it drops to 90p. And actually the transactions start to dry up as they go from 90p to 85p. Obviously it starts to dry up. Right, the price, sorry, that price shifts there, and let me just clean that up. Don't forget, this is the passage of time. This is happening all the time, and I'm going to show you how this happens in a second. You'll be amazed, but just bear with me. Like I said at the start, the reality check, this is why I said it. You've got to stick through this theory because it's going to change the way you look at financial markets forever. So they come down to 80p, 85p, and actually, when they're calculating their revenue, demand, units sold times price, they realize, oh, revenues have dropped. And look at this, it's just a volume profile, right? Can you see it? Less transactions at 85, less transactions at 85p, 90p. Okay, same thing. That's all I want you to see. It's exactly the same. And what are they doing? They're offering out, and we, the consumer. So that's why I say forget about this for now. It would get too confusing. It's irrelevant anyway. Auction market theory to prove my point. I don't need to get crazy and start thinking of wholesale markets, and because otherwise you'll have to have 4 basically pieces of information on here, and you can't. It's multi-dimensional, and you start to have 3D charts, and it starts to get crazy. It's totally unnecessary to prove my point. So again, like I said, Market orders are taking place here, as you already know from watching depth of market now for a while, and supply is there. We can't necessarily see the supply here, but you can see it here, okay? And again, there's a reason why we don't necessarily need to look at supply when we're looking at the price of, so this could quite easily be euro dollar, pound dollar, right? And we've already gone through that, but we'll come back to that point. Let's just finish with this. So price comes down, they recognize revenue's gone down. What do? Take it back up, okay? And then they may stick here, and then you'll see some more transactions, and this process repeats. You've got to understand this process of price going up, down, down, up, down, down, up, down, down, up through time, sorry, and then all these volume transactions building. You've got to understand it is happening in, forget bread, I mean, think how many items these guys are selling. Every single day for every single item, go and walk into your local supermarket and go and have a look on the shelves how many items there are. Diet Coke, full fat Coke, Pepsi, ice cream, every single brand of ice cream you can think of, frozen foods. I was at the supermarket today. What else? Dog food, crisps, seasoning, water, milk, bread, pound dollar. It's exactly the same. You have to understand that what is happening is suppliers are looking at price discovery. So what they're doing, forget about the pound dollar for now, we'll come back to that. But would you agree for every good, this process is happening? What the supplier, Tesco, the offerer, the person who's got the inventory, the price, the dominant force is the price, is the person on the bid or offer side. We'll call it the offer side. This is something I didn't talk about in the milk example before. I agree, and I've never seen this described on YouTube like this. So again, that's why I say about the etiquette. You know, these type of examples I'd appreciate if you keep it yourself. But let's get to the point and show you why is it so critical to think of it like this. Because basically what Tesco, whoever, realize is this is approximately throughout, 6, 7, let's say this is about 12 months. This is the price of bread approximately over the period of time. And what they are doing all the time throughout time is they are changing price to see is there demand. They're testing to see where is fair value. Constantly, they'll be saying, is that a pound? Is that £1.05 next month? Is that £1.10? Oh, no, it's too high. Let's bring it back down to £1.05. Let's bring it back to £1. 95p, 90. Oh, let's take it back to £1. Let's take it to £1.05. Let's take it to 110. How do you think they're determining this? Okay, transactional data, right? Actual, what do we call them? Market orders. When someone goes into Tesco, picks up a loaf of bread and physically decides to buy it, what are they doing? Market order. So you've got to understand this concept that the market profile exists in every single traded good, and this works in services as well. I'm not going to do it for every single different variation because we'll be here basically all day and night, but this is how the bread market is working essentially, is prices are being set by the supplier at different levels, and they're testing it and collecting data based on volume profile. They just don't call it volume profile, they'll call it transactional data, whatever you want, but you have to understand this is what they're doing. Now here's the next point, technical analysis. And this is why I say, if you still think it's indicators after what I'm about to tell you, honestly, don't take this the wrong way, but you need to stop trading, or you need to really think about whether this career is for you. Because let's say that they next decide at this point in time whether to go down to 95 or whether to go to 105 or whatever it is. Do you really think that Tesco are sitting there thinking, oh, let's draw a trend line from here to here, and oh, it meets there, so actually we shouldn't have. So let me get rid of this, sorry, for a second, because it doesn't prove my point properly. But so we said approximately fair value is there, right? Okay, so this is a trend line. Do you think they're sitting there thinking, when they're determining where the price should be, about 12, 13 months after a period of time, and they're checking their obviously market orders, as in people who've purchased demand, do you really got to ask yourself, do you think that they're sitting here thinking, oh, look where the trend line meets, let's set it at 95p? I'm actually going to pause for a second because I really want you to think about this, because you really got to ask yourself, do you actually think that Tesco, for a price of a loaf of bread, are sitting here, and I'm going to keep repeating this point, are thinking, oh, the RSI is oversold, or over here it's overbought, it's oversold, so let's move the price, let's change it, or look, there's confluence with the trend line and that's why. And you got to remember, if you're thinking that that's the case, you're assuming that what? They're not looking at this, right? So my question to you is, do you think that what is determining the next price here is this trend line and this RSI, MACD, or whatever, or some moving average that is here, and they think, oh, look, it's a 20-period moving average? The CEO of Tesco rings up his data analyst department and says, guys, the 20-period moving average is at 95p. Go and set the price of bread at 95p. Or do you think they're looking at actual transactions that took place in the market at 95p, and they can see there was demand in the past at 95p? Let's go and test and see if there's actually demand again at 95p, because that's about the fair price. That's B. So option B is the one I just gave you. Option A is, do you think it's this trend line and whatever, and they're not looking at this stuff? If you think it's A, that they're looking at this trend line and whatnot, then basically you need to stop trading. If you think it's B, great. Let's be obvious. It is B. And hopefully 100% of you said, yeah, of course it's option B. Of course they're looking at where demand was in the past. It was at 95p. They collected that data and they recognized that they can go and test the market at this price, this range, 95p to 105. Why? Because transactional data, actual people told them. They might not have phoned them and told them. They told them by taking money out of their pocket and buying at 95p that that's where the price should be. So yeah, hopefully most of you have recognized, and I'm sure you have, because you're probably laughing thinking, well, of course, Envy, they're not looking at a trend line. What a load of nonsense. Obviously, they're looking at, why would Tesco look at a trend line? Well, my point is this. If you are one of those that have agreed with me that it is option B, sorry, I'm going to get to the point, that it is this that Tesco are looking at, however, you're still using technical analysis on your charts. My question to you is why? Why? Why are you using technical analysis? Because what's the difference between... so I'm going to scribble over this a little bit, because obviously I've been quite static with the price, because obviously the price of bread doesn't change as frequently as financial market prices. But really, this is all that's happening in the financial markets all day long. Can you see that? That is a chart of pound dollar, euro dollar, oil, E-mini S&P 500, What is the difference? So if you are using technical analysis, moving average, MACD, what are you doing? What on earth are you doing? Please stop. And if you can't, then I have to tell you, you're not going to make it in this game. Okay? I have to be very frank with you. You're not going to make it in this game, because, as I've already shown you on a depth of market, what's the driving force behind the price of pound, dollar, etc., etc.? Market orders. It's exactly the same. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that I have actually found a website that I use sometimes, and many of you may use it and you may not actually realize it, but obviously Tesco, part of the problem is why people, when I show it to them, they're like, oh my God, that's so obvious. Part of the reason why people don't necessarily think of it so much in this manner is because obviously Tesco don't make it public. Tesco won't go around advertising, oh yeah, look, we had this many buyers at £1. We had this. No, 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 of course not. Firstly, there's going to be millions of transactions. It's not practical. But secondly, of course, then they don't want competitors to have this data. So it's not publicly available. However, what I managed to find is the price of bread on Amazon over time. That's why I've used this example. So let me show you. Let me just get rid of some of that. Okay, guys, so I just want to show you that this is the price of bread over time. So can you actually see what is happening here? It's exactly the same thing. This is for a pack of 6, so it's not necessarily a pack of 1. And let me just move this to the side actually so I can bring the markings back and we can compare it almost side by side. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. What it is, I don't want to get rid of this just yet, and if I erase it then it's a bit of a headache because I've got to do it all over again. So let's just get rid of that. And look, I really hope you don't mind about the time spent on this, because really, you're not going to find this anywhere else. You're going to find some auction market theory stuff, but it won't be explained to you like this. I already know, I've seen the stuff out there. Again, I'm sorry to keep repeating the point, but this is why I talked about, I will highlight where I'm trying to do things in a different manner. And I really wasn't taught it like this in the prop firm, in my classroom. I was taught it very basic manner. And it took me this is really, I talked about certain turning points in my career when I talked about the reality check in the last video. And I said, it was one of the big turning points was obviously when I accepted that you can't get the perfect price entry. And I spoke about a few things, but honestly, this was another huge factor where it started dawning on me. Wow, I've got market order data, market profile, volume profile. I've got a volume profile, and it's exactly the same as what's going on in every good in the world. What am I doing? Why am I using all this junk? I mean, I was okay. I didn't really use indicators and stuff, but there were certain ways of thinking I had where I was always looking for ways of measuring fair value, which weren't obviously what you see exactly here. So it was only when I really recognized how important it was to measure fair value in this way, that obviously my trading really started to take off. So I was always making money, but it was really start to take it to the next level was when I started measuring fair value in this way. So look, anyway, coming back to the Amazon example, so you can see here it's the same bread by owner. I've just taken it off there, but it's a pack of 6, so it's not obviously £1, it's £10. But guys, you've got to realize you might not be able to see this on your phone. You'll have to desktop and zoom it, and I'm not going to zoom it here, but this is over the last 8 years. What has Amazon been doing? What you can't see here is Amazon, their algorithms are doing exactly this. Transactional data, you just don't see it here at this price point. Okay, sorry, I know this is all a bit muddled. Let me just try and move this, sorry about this, a little bit, just so I can make it a bit clearer. In fact, let's just get rid of this because we don't need this. Prove my point on the depth of market, right? And let's just clean this all up so we can create a bit of room for ourselves. And I can really show you this properly. There you go. Okay, obviously that was the MACD. Okay, sorry, I appreciate your patience whilst I sorted that out. So what you've got to realize is Amazon is collecting market order data every time someone transacts at £10 and buys this. So I managed to get this data, but Amazon are never going to provide you with their volume profile. But that is what they're looking at. You have to understand, they've got an algorithm. Have you noticed how the price of an Amazon product, you get it at the top of your basket, it will say this product changed by 3p, 5p, £1, 2. What do you think they're doing? I'm sorry to get so animated about this, but you've got to understand what's going on in the marketplace. Every time bread is bought at £10 on Amazon, the algorithm is recording that. Okay, every time, the passage of time. Then it decides, let's go and test 9. Who's the supplier? Amazon. What are they doing? Offer side. What did I say about Tesco? Offer side. Exactly the same thing. You see, you might have thought, oh, Envy's just making this example up. Guys, I'm showing it to you here. Physically, go and check the price on this website for yourself, and it records Amazon changing its price to £9. It tests the market. And what probably happens is every time the algorithm tests these prices, there's slightly less demand, and then it obviously shoots back up. And I talked about this in the milk market. I said, where's fair value, right? Do they use some indicator to predict it? No, they know where fair value is because, sorry, it's not the greatest drawing, but they know where fair value is because they've recorded the data. It's where people were willing to place market orders for bread. So you've got to understand this. At £10, clearly a lot of people have transacted at £10. Then it shot down, few people transacted, boom, it shot up again. It's too cheap. Went down, oh, it was too cheap. People just suddenly came in, and then where did the algorithm go back to? Fair value. Okay, this is a few transactions here, but a huge amount of transactions took place around, 9.90, 10.10, whatever it is, that price. You can see the little fluctuations here. Where's fair price? Here, approximately in this range. Okay, what do you think the algorithm's doing? Every time the price, it goes and tests 8, and it doesn't quite work, as in there's a surge in demand probably at 8 and it thinks, oh, it's too cheap. The algorithm shoots back up to where? 10. Why? Do you think there's some indicator here that's saying to it, oh, I'm bouncing on a trend line, let me go back up? Or actually, there's a 50% Fibonacci between £14 and £7, and the 50% is here at £10, so let me bounce back to £10. Really, I have to kind of hold my face there because, and I don't blame you for thinking this. I used to think this way when I first came into the financial markets 16 years ago. Even I thought there was some magic bounce or this or that. But I need to ask you the question again. And answer me, but obviously silently to yourself. Do you think, A, Amazon's algorithm has a trend line and a 50% fib and whatever other nonsense, and because it bounced there, it said, oops, I better put the price back up, and because the moving average for the last whatever is £10, let me go back there? Or do you think the algorithm realizes that the majority of demand, market orders, took place in this region? That's answer B. Clearly it's B, right? Do you think Jeff Bezos is sitting there thinking, the price moved away from the 50%, quick guys, get the algorithm to change the price of bread back to a tenner? come on, he's not. Obviously, obviously it's not him individually, but he's got what? People like that were sitting in Tesco, um, who were collecting this data and recognizing that that's where the fair price is, and we can go and test other prices, but ultimately, if those prices we test don't work, we're going to have to come back to fair value. But the whole of fair value is going to be, that sort of range around here, where the volume profile peaks, where the most transactions took place, market orders. So basically, hopefully your answer was obviously that it is that. And again, I would say to you, if you think it is some sort of special tool or confluence of all these technical indicators, I'm not saying this to be horrible. I actually hope you see it. I'm doing you a favor. You need to really think about whether you understand not only financial markets, but any market in the world. Because there is no difference between this bread price and what is going on in pound dollar, euro dollar, or whatever it is. You've got to understand that the price of the pound here, euro dollar, obviously I didn't draw it as wide a range as I did for the Tesco being the supplier. But all price is doing all day long is what? Looking for fair value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this forward now, because what basically this is I'm showing you price determination in a balanced market. It's very balanced. The market is moving, it's very balanced, and I kind of told you in module 4 that it's return to value. So as I said, there are trading opportunities, mean reversion plays, and we're going to get into this a little bit later. But I want you to think about this, that essentially this is where trading opportunities do occur. As I said in the milk example, where price will fluctuate a little bit away from, I think it was $1.50, I believe I used, to 160. Guys, same thing. Price will fluctuate from £1 to £1.10. There's a trading opportunity. Why is that? Because it's most likely to come back to its fair price, somewhere in the middle, but within the realms of the overall fair price. Now, we're going to take this up a notch. I really hope that made a lot of sense. I know it was very long, and I'm going to actually put this into the next section now. I'm going to talk a little bit about shifts actually in supply and demand, and how we actually become imbalanced. So we're talking about balance here, and we become imbalanced. So, but before I do that, I know I've written example 1 here, but what I want to show you is very quickly, what I was going to do is I was going to show you this sort of detail for other products, so chocolates, webcams, so on and so forth. But what I've realized is, and I'm going to be honest with you, do you know what? Every single module, it's quite funny. I was saying this to someone earlier who's kindly bought the course, and I said to him, I don't pre-plan any of this stuff. I had no idea how this would turn out. And that's the way it should be. My knowledge is not in an arrogant way, but I know it's extensive, and I don't pre-plan any of this. So my point is this. I planned, you can see that I put example 1. I was going to do this for loads of examples, and actually, I kind of just give you my knowledge as it is in my mind. It's not, I don't have to go and research this anywhere else. This is in-depth understanding from me trading the market every day. This is as real as you're going to get. Obviously, when people do YouTube videos and they write books and theory, they'll be doing a lot of research. I don't do that. Why? Because I actually trade this stuff every day. So I just tell you it raw, how it is. And anyway, sorry, my point is this, that rather than do a new example 2, if you don't mind, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly show you before we move on to the next section, and I show you how we actually shift from balance to imbalance, is I'm just going to quickly show you how this pricing mechanism exists in every other market in the world. Now, obviously I can't show you every, millions of products in the world, but what I can do is I can show you Amazon's price movement over time for different products, because obviously Tesco don't make that available, Walmart don't really publish that online. This third-party company tracks it. So I'm going to show you some other ones. So let's have a look at Cadbury's cream egg, which is this one. So guys, have a look at this. This is the price of Cadbury's cream egg for the last 3 years. Can you see what they're doing? The algorithm is constantly doing what? Testing the market at 25, at 16, at 20, right? And what it's doing is it's collecting market orders. You going on Amazon and buying Cadbury's cream egg, every time you hit buy, it's recording that in a volume profile. Okay, and it's using this data to determine what area to fluctuate price around, what area to test it around is this area here. Okay, can you see that? Trading opportunity, trading opportunity, trading opportunity in a balanced market. Okay, and believe it or not, there will be people out there, I can assure you, who watch this stuff when the price drops to £16. Opportunists will come along, they'll buy it for 16 and sell it on for 20 in eBay. And the algorithm sees the demand come in, quick fluctuation, and moves it back up to fair value. Got to understand that that is what is happening all day. It doesn't just stay at one price like this static. It's doing this type of movement. Financial markets are doing this all day long. The only difference is the dominant force is different, and that's why I was talking about the dominant force before. Whereas obviously Amazon is the dominant force in the sense that Amazon is the supplier. It's determining to some extent, based on obviously demand, where price should be set. But ultimately, it dictates it, doesn't it? It has an algorithm that will go in and change the prices. And financial markets are slightly different there, and that's why the depth columns in traditional goods and services, can you see the depth columns are absolutely crucial? That fourth column, inventory, you can understand Amazon wants to know how many Cadbury's cream eggs do we have left, right? Let me just come back to that point anyway, because I'm conscious that, you know, this is obviously turning into quite a long video, but it's absolutely crucial, guys, what I'm telling you. And that's what I said about the classroom thing. You can pause it if you want to break, whatever. I think I'm just going to carry on until I get the point across. Here's Cadbury's milk chocolate bar. Okay, guys, this is the price of milk chocolate bars from August 16, 2018 to 2000, so the last 2 years. See it for yourself. What is Amazon doing? Testing the market between £6 and £8. Okay, and they're collecting market data. I'm sorry about all of this, but I just don't want to get rid of it just in case I need to use it to show it to you later. Okay, what is Amazon doing? They're collecting data every time price is at £7. Their algorithm will be collecting data. Sorry, I know it's a bit. And look, I apologize. I maybe know this presentation isn't as smooth as possible, but you know, I'm not a professional presenter. I'm a trader. I'm trying to give it to you raw as it's coming in my mind, rather than it being pre-prepared, because then you're really going to get an insight into how I trade. Can you see how long did it spend there? Bloop, and it went straight back up. So obviously, clearly, there was such aggression, but very few transactions. The algorithm decided, nope, we're going to go back to around £7. Same at £8, tested the market, and then bloop, came back down. So can you see? Volume profile. They just don't call, obviously they don't call it volume profile, they call it data analytics or data, whatever you want to call it, BI, data intelligence, there's various names for it, but they're collecting this data, and this is what is helping them to do what? Decide where the next price should be within a balanced market. Okay, and this is where, as you saw with the milk example, the price of milk shifted significantly when what? There was a fundamental change in the market. Have you noticed here? I haven't talked about fundamental change. I didn't say, you know, there's a problem in the grain market, so all of a sudden bread prices have shifted. There's what else? I'm just trying to think. Import taxes have suddenly risen. Fundamental shifts that will cause balance to shift and become imbalanced and new balance to form. That we're going to talk about in the next part. I just want to make that clear that these shifts are happening within a balanced market, not because there's necessarily any fundamental structural shifts. It's happening because they're testing the price within a range. Okay, and that's what you've got to understand, why I say you've got to give prices leeway in terms of where fair price is, because within a balanced market, fair price can fluctuate quite a lot. You can trade, you can take advantage of it with mean reversion, obviously, as I said. But we'll get onto all of that, okay? That's much further on in the course. So that's Cadbury's milk chocolate. You can see the same things happening as what happens in a financial market. Okay, guys? Determined by fair price. It's just going from one extreme to the other. Do you remember the treasury market? What did I say? You get to the top, and I sold it to go where? Back to £7. Obviously, in the treasury market, it was something else. Return to value. Breakout would be market going imbalanced, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the next section. But you might think, why is Envy constantly telling us this? Well, this is fundamental, because I want to make sure every single, not 90%, I want to make 100% of you understand this. So I don't care if I have to say it 10 times. If this is the last one, by the way, then that's what needs to be done, because what it is I'm going to be referring to this type of stuff later on, and I don't want anyone left behind and thinking, what on earth is the guy talking about? So I actually noticed I wanted to change my webcam to do all of this stuff, so I thought, let me just bring up webcam prices, because for some reason recently webcams have just been unavailable. But anyway, that's what I thought of webcam. So what's the difference here between this financial markets, guys? I can't see it, so and hopefully you agree with me that it's exactly the same. It has a price, it's an asset. Pound, euro, oil, stocks, Logitech webcams. You got to understand, technical indicators are garbage. This is what technical analysis is doing. Where's the price? Oh, I can't see it. Why? Why are you doing it to yourselves? I really don't understand. Clear all that crap off your charts and start understanding what on earth is going on at price levels that you don't see on your chart. Volume profile. We're going to put it on the chart, okay? It is what? Market orders on the depth of market is the volume profile. Bring the raw data onto your charts. Can you now see? Guys, welcome to the pro course. This is a really exciting moment for me because, like I said, I didn't pre-plan all of this, and actually I'm realizing it's worked out perfectly. This section in the course, I've really got to this point where I feel comfortable saying that to you, because I can see it clearly. Oh, okay. Now I can actually show these guys, obviously, and ladies that are watching this, that this is why volume profile is absolutely crucial. Because can you see, this is the key transition from depth of market to chart. Is all this is market orders here taking place on your chart, on a webcam chart, on the bread, the chocolate, whatever it is. Transactions. Guys, this could be the property market. It doesn't matter what it is. End of the day, You've got to understand all assets, goods and services are behaving in this way. Transactions, demand, market orders are building at every price level. Obviously, there'll be less here. And all these algorithms are doing, Amazon's, or physical people or machines in Tesco's or whatever it is they're saying to themselves, let's go and test the market and see what demand is like. And actually, if it isn't there or it is, boom, let's go back. Let's go and test it. Nope, let's go back. Let's go and test it. Let's go back. Let's go and test it. Let's go back. See it? Familiar? Yep, financial markets. They're doing the same thing all day long. That's what pound dollar's doing. It's testing to see, is there market orders? Is there market orders here? Is there market orders here? Okay, so this is the final thing I'm going to say, but it's absolutely crucial. Because what you've got to understand, right, is I think I've exhausted the point. You agree with me, right? This is what is determining fair price, not some ridiculous indicator that happens to meet the price of Logitech webcams at 58 quid. It's to do with demand at 58, market orders. So again, hopefully you've now got to it. Indicators, it's all garbage, and that's what it is. But you probably think I'm gone off my initial point, but I haven't. And I remember I do want to make one final point, which is it's really to do with supply and the dominant force. Because what you've got to actually understand is, I've been talking a lot about demand here, market orders. But would you agree that there's two things that can make price change? Okay, I don't want to get into economics too much. This is about teaching you how to trade. This isn't about teaching you how to go and set up a bread business or to set up a chocolate, whatever it was. I can't remember what chocolates we looked at, cream eggs or whatever it was, or a bread business sorry, I'm just having a look here. The examples that we gave, dairy milk business, or Cadbury's cream egg business. What you've got to understand, would you agree, and you saw this on the depth of market, what causes price to shift? Would you agree? It's either demand, market orders eating into supply, or what? Supply moving out of the way. Would you agree? So for example, let's say there was, let's just make up some numbers, 100 contracts here. And let's forget about the bids at the moment, because it's going to confuse the matter, because obviously we're talking about more of a typical market like Tesco or Amazon is one way. They're offering, typically you don't go and sell to Amazon as a consumer. Your market order is on the buy side, right? Here. So let's just concentrate here for one moment. Sorry, forget about that one. As I said, it's just a legacy number. So 100 products are being offered. Let's just think of the webcams. There's 100 webcams, and it could be pound dollar. There's 100 contracts, doesn't matter. Would you agree for this to move up? What are the two things that have to happen? Either market orders have to wipe this out and it shifts up, or what? So this goes to 100, market moves up from, let's say webcams are £100 and it goes to £101. Or let's talk about pound dollar being 121.50 and 121.51. Okay, what is going to actually cause the price to go up? You already know this, right? And I'm not asking you as if you don't know. I'm not teaching you. It's a rhetorical question. You know the answer. Market orders, right? Clearing this out, 100 print, and the price moves up. What's the other way that this can move up? I'm gonna pause for a second. Pause the video if you need to think about it. Okay, so there's 100 contracts. What can make this go up? These 100 guys offering do what? They don't get cleared out. They just decide we don't want to offer at this price anymore. We now decided we're going to offer at £101 or £102 or £103. Okay, can you see that? The whole supply has moved. So guys, you're never going to see this anywhere on the internet, and this is why I say, please be discreet with all of this stuff. This is stuff I've not figured out myself because it's happening, but it's basically what I realized is going on in the financial markets, is that who's the dominant force in this instance where you're selling Logitech webcams? Amazon. Amazon is the dominant force, right? The seller. Tesco, the bread seller, they typically decide whether they're going to test the market at £1.5, £1.10. Amazon decides whether they're going to sell Logitech cameras at £100, 102. Can you see? It's this supplier is the dominant force. What you have to understand is that financial markets. So my point is this: what Tesco will actually be looking at is what? Market orders, and we call it pending orders, but inventory, supply. So their actually business is incredibly complicated because they're not only looking at demand factors, a volume profile, they're also looking at supply factors. This column, bids and offers, as in offers, essentially. They're looking at the inventory. What you got to realize is that you got it lucky in the financial markets. Suppliers are not in control of financial markets. Can you understand why I got you on the depth of market? Can you imagine if I'm trying to explain this to you, that is suppliers in control and blah, 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 and this column and that, you're going to be lost unless you'd spent that time on the depth of market. Now I'm confident you're going to understand this when I tell you that when have you ever seen someone in the treasury market have 100 and just decide, nah, I'm not going to be, it doesn't happen, right? The exchange, the banks, they have an obligation to provide liquidity. A, and B, how many people do you think transact in pound dollar at any given moment compared to how many people are buying bread in any given second? It's not even comparable. So you've got to understand that liquidity is humongous in financial markets. What is liquidity? Supply. This column is going to be always loaded. All right, maybe not 1,000 contracts, but the reason I've written 1,000 there is, and I'm sorry, I know this is taking a long time, but you've got to understand, you're getting diamond material here. I hope you can see that. What's happening is, what is the increments in financial markets? 120, 150, 120, 151. You've got to realize that it's not about supply at any single price level. This is why I got you in the depth of market. It's about supply over multiple price levels. I'm showing you here the price of webcams in £1 increments, right? Can you imagine how much supply there is in the pound in a £1 increment, right? Guys, thousands of contracts. In treasuries, God, you're probably talking several 100,000 contracts, okay? So you've got to understand that the inventory in financial markets, it's not the dominant force in the sense that there's so much of it, it doesn't get a say in, oh, I'm going to decide now to offer at 120, 150, because trust me, if you're sitting at 120, 150 in pound dollar and you decide, I'm not going to offer it anymore at 120, 150 or 120, 151, don't get obsessed with single price levels. Think of a range. Let's think about a few prices around there. You've seen how much it can fluctuate. But in approximately that region, you decide you're going to be the Amazon and supply pounds to the market. And you decide, nah, I'm going to move my price. You know how Amazon moves the price from £100 to £103? Guys, someone else is going to come along and replace you in the blink of an eye. You are not the dominant force on the supply side. Okay? And I recognized this as my career evolved, and I realized that's why opportunities on the depth of market are virtually zero, because obviously algorithms have taken over, and that's part of the reason, but this is the other reason. Supply is not the dominant force. It's irrelevant. There's always supply, an abundance of supply. Whereas Amazon is different. Amazon, they're dictating what? They essentially have the entire market's inventory in their warehouse. That's not how it works in financial markets. How many people are supplying pounds in the markets? Thousands of people. And don't get confused and say, oh, envy, we saw the spoofer. Guys, that's one price level, right? I'm talking about a period of a day and multiple prices, even in a small range. There's always abundant supply. You've got to understand this distinction. And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking about this for a few minutes because it's so important. You've got to understand this, that at price levels equivalent to what Amazon are selling at, so they're selling at £100, £101, £102, the equivalent is just a price in a financial asset. It could be crude oil, whatever. You've got to understand that even Tesco, they're the dominant force. And who are they? They're the offerers. They're offering the good. Financial markets is not the dominant force in the sense that there's such an abundance of it, they can't dictate the price. So who is dictating the price? Market orders. Can you see that? It's these guys in these columns. They've now become the dominant force in financial markets. That's why I talk about dominant force. Why is that important? Because if we're starting a business tomorrow, selling bread or Cadbury's cream eggs or whatever I'm showing you, two things are going to be really important. Market orders, but also inventory. I've just said to you, at the end of the day, there's supply. There's always supply at every level. We just said that there's two ways that price is going to move. You've been watching a depth of market now for 3 months. When have you ever seen the entire supply just clear out without market orders getting involved? Doesn't happen. Why? Because there's an abundance of supply. So can you understand that? And rewind this a few times if you don't. Market orders are the ones causing price to shift in financial markets because there's so much supply. Think about it. Logitech webcams, okay? Amazon or bread. We've got bread up here. Let's talk about bread. Tesco, Sainsbury's, Asda, typically, and you hear about cartels, and they probably do have some price collusion going on. Would you agree that pretty much the entire country's bread, forget the small guys, is pretty much dominated by 2 or 3 players, the supermarkets, right? That's not the case in financial markets, especially in exchange traded markets. There's plenty of supply amongst a variety of suppliers. So my point is this: if there was plenty of bread, abundance, do you think it would be easy for all those suppliers to just turn around one day and say, actually, we're going to now do what? Move the price on the depth of market from £1 to £1.5? No. If Amazon didn't control so much inventory of Logitech webcams, do you think it'd be easy for them to say, basically, they're now what? The people on the offer side. I'm going to move the price up to £1.3. How? Because I'm going to change my offer at £1.2. I'm going to move it up. So now, this is Amazon talking. They're now telling the market, guys, the price is now 103. Take it or leave it. Do you see that happening on the depth of market? No, you don't. Market orders are dominant. Why do I keep saying this? Because what you're going to realize is this is why volume profile is everything in a financial market. Because what is volume profile? Market orders. Okay? Can you see why in my career I've moved away from supply side? I really don't care about supply. If Amazon was the whole pound dollar market in the way that it is typically Logitech webcam market, Look, I get it. There's curries and stuff, but typically it's just a few dominant players. Is my point. Um, then obviously I'd look at supply, but that's not the case anymore. And it's not only about dominant players; it's about amount. When you look at your depth of market, don't fall into the trap of thinking envy, but I only see thin market 20. No, I'm talking about, you've got to remember the increments in financial markets are very small. I'm talking about over a range of prices. There's abundant supply. Believe me, if you wanted to, when have you ever gone on your platform and not been able to place a market order? There's always supply. It's always there, right? It doesn't work like that in with other goods. So my point is to come back to it. Market orders are determining it. So from now on, market profile is going to be the dominant force for us as well because of this reason. So I'll come back to the point. You're very lucky because actually, in a way, you're lucky because what happens is this luck does get counterbalanced, and I'm going to tell you why. But in a way, what would be happening is obviously if you set up a business, like I said, selling bread, chocolates, the stuff examples we'll be looking at, you'd have to look at market profile, but you'd also have to look at the supply, like I said, and you can imagine the chart would become very difficult to read because you'd have market profile, you'd have to somehow incorporate supply, as in not only market orders, market profile, but supply. The problem is, so you might be thinking, oh, does that mean that we're lucky, so it's easier to run a trading business in terms of financial markets than it is bread market or whatever these other products, goods and services out there? No. The problem is that is counteracted by the fact that there's so much liquidity that price determination is taking place over so many levels, and that's what makes it difficult. And it comes back to my reality check from the first video where I said my career really changed when I recognized this. I realized price determination is taking place, this effect is taking place over 121.50, 121.51, 121.52. This is pound dollar, by the way. It's making up a number. 121.53, 121.54, 121.55, 125, 156, 121.57, 121.58. Guys, you're probably thinking, what the hell is MV going on about? Guys, look at depth of market. There's supply everywhere. So at the end of the day, for market orders might now be the dominant force in financial markets. So it's demand, right? Market orders. And obviously in a lot of other goods and services, it's the supply side, right? Don't get me wrong, it's not like, we don't have any say. Obviously, if everyone decided to stop buying bread tomorrow, obviously Tesco and producers, suppliers would have to obviously adjust for that. And they do adjust because they do look at market profile. I'm not saying that they're completely dictating the market. I'm just saying they're the dominant force. In financial markets, it is significantly the demand side market orders because there is that much supply. But again, coming back to my point, right, is the problem is, even though we're now only going to focus on market orders, and you can see why, because I'm talking about demand being the dominant force on the depth of market, right? The problem is basically the demand side, what they'll be doing all the time in conjunction with supply, obviously, is testing prices at different levels. But for price to actually move to different levels, there's so much supply at every level. Can you see? It doesn't jump around. It doesn't present the profit opportunities that some of these more illiquid markets like bread, chocolate, property present themselves with. So I promise it's going to be last thing, then we're going to move on, but you really need to understand this. Property, let me give you an example, is a very illiquid market, and supply tends to be quite dominant. in that market. I'm not saying demand doesn't have any effect. Of course it does. You know, if no one's willing to buy property, then the price will change accordingly. But it's heavily skewed by supply because there's a lack of supply. You know, population growth. Why do you think property prices go up over time? Um, it's to do with this lack of supply issue. So it's a supply phenomenon. And obviously population is growing, but it's scarce. Property is more and more scarce. But the point is, if you look at the price increments, so property in theory is quite a complex market because it's not only this supply side issue you've obviously also got demand side issue in terms of population growth and more demand, but supply side issues in terms of scarcity, only so much land in the world. So can you see depth of market has to be 4 columns? Whereas I'm saying to you guys, you only need to worry about 2 columns. But the problem is, it's counterbalanced in a way because, sorry, it sounds like I'm taking ages to get to the point. It's just I'm trying to explain it slowly to make sure that everyone understands. Property can tend to jump in prices. Let's say you're buying a house for $400,000, £400,000. People don't think twice about putting in an offer at 410, 420, 405. We're talking 5 grand, 10 grand, 20 grand. Those can potentially, I know there's risk, but be potentially quite big incremental jumps. Do financial markets jump by 5 grand, 10 grand in terms of prices? The equivalent. So it's the equivalent of, we talked about obviously 400 going to 405 or 410. That's the equivalent. Oil going from 40 to 40.5. No, it doesn't. It jumps 40.01, 40.02, 40.03, 40.04. Can you see? It's counterbalanced because, okay, we've got less to worry about in terms of no supply, but now we've got this headache because market orders are constantly being transacted where, and obviously with interaction with the supply columns, has such a vast range of prices that we need to take into account that. So I just want you to remember that market orders, for the reasons I've said, are absolutely crucial in financial markets because they're the dominant force. But secondly, you've got to realize that these market orders are taking place over many different price levels, a problem that you don't necessarily face in other markets, but then other markets have supply issues, so it's counterbalanced. So going forward, financial markets, we're going to focus on market orders and the fact that fair value can be over quite a significant range of prices. All right, guys, so that's a balanced market. We're going to now look a little bit at imbalance, but don't worry, we're going to come back to this notion of balance and imbalance. But yeah, I hope you feel that that was a real value add auction market theory section. You're not going to get it anywhere. And excuse me, I know right now you're probably thinking, how on earth do we use this? But you'll see how we use this in trading and so on and so forth as the pro course develops. But yeah, if you don't understand this, you're going to have to go back and watch it again and again and again, and just get indicators out of your head because, yeah, then they're not going to get you anywhere. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you in the next section. Cheers.